Hey everyone, and welcome back to Western Flavors. Before we get into our new episode, let's recap the dramatic and emotional events from our last story. After weeks of struggling with his inner demons, Ty, with the help of his family, finally made a conscious decision to let go of his all-consuming anger for Nathan and find his own peace. Although he stopped Nathan from controlling his emotions, he knew Nathan was a fugitive who must be brought to justice for all his crimes. After long, thoughtful, isolated decision-making, he knew the only way he can be himself again was if he personally defeated Nathan. If you're enjoying this new season, please take a second to hit that like button and be sure to subscribe so you never miss a chapter. Now, today, a new, even more difficult decision must be made, as Amy is forced to confront the one thing she has feared most since Ty's return. The quiet, intimate darkness of their bedroom was a sacred space, a sanctuary they had fought so hard to reclaim. But in the wake of Ty's quiet, devastating declaration, "I know where Nathan is," the peaceful atmosphere had been shattered, replaced by a thick and deeply, deeply fearful silence. Amy stood by the window, the cool night air from the Alberta foothills, a stark, unnoticed presence on her skin. She was not looking at him. She was looking out at the familiar, moonlit landscape of her home, a world that had, just a moment ago, felt so safe, so whole, and was now once again threatened by the long, dark shadow of a man she had thought was gone for good. She didn't have to ask what he was thinking. She didn't have to ask what he was planning to do. She knew. She could feel it in the tense, resolute energy that was now radiating from him. She could see it in the grim, hard line of his jaw, illuminated by the pale, silvery moonlight. The man who had just spent the last few weeks in a state of quiet, peaceful, and scholarly dedication was gone. In his place was the other man, the one she had not seen since the night of the wedding, the survivor, the fighter, the soldier. And she knew, with a certainty that was a cold, hard stone of pure, unadulterated terror in her gut, that he was going to leave her again. He hadn't said the words yet, but he didn't have to. The decision was there, in his eyes, in his posture, in the very air between them. And the thought of him willingly walking back into the heart of the very danger that had stolen him from her in the first place, the thought of waking up in this bed, alone, all over again, was a pain so profound, so absolute, that it was a physical, crushing weight on her chest. She moved. It was not a conscious decision. It was a primal, instinctual, and deeply, deeply desperate act of a woman who was not willing to lose her entire world all over again. She closed the distance between them, her bare feet silent on the cold wooden floor. He was still standing by the window, his back to her, a solitary, resolute figure, a man who was already in his own mind, a million miles away. She came up behind him and wrapped her arms around his waist, her own body a desperate, loving shield against the decision she knew he was about to make. She pressed her cheek against the warm, solid comfort of his back, and she breathed him in, the familiar, beloved scent of him, a heartbreaking reminder of everything she was about to lose.
Don't.
Her voice was a small, fragile, and broken whisper against the fabric of his shirt.
Amy,
Don't say it. Please. Just for one more minute. Just let me pretend that you're not about to tell me you're leaving.
He was silent, but his own hand came up to rest on hers where it was clasped around his waist, a silent, sorrowful acknowledgement of the truth she had just spoken. She tightened her grip, her own voice now a desperate, heartfelt, and deeply, deeply loving plea.
I don't want to ever lose you. Not again. I can't. I survived it once, Ty. I did. I was strong. I was a mother. I ran this ranch. I did it all. But I was just surviving. I wasn't living. The last few months, with you back, with our family whole again, this is the first time in 4 long years that I have felt like I am truly, completely, and utterly alive. And I am so scared of going back to the quiet, to the emptiness, to the ghost of you that I had to live with for so long.
He turned in her arms then, his own face a mask of a profound and deeply, deeply sorrowful love. He looked down at her, at the raw, beautiful, and heartbreaking vulnerability in her eyes, and a single silent tear escaped his own, tracing a path down his cheek.
I know. And I am so sorry, Amy. More sorry than you will ever know.
His voice was a low, rough, and deeply emotional rasp. He leaned down and kissed her, a long, slow, and deeply, deeply sad kiss, a kiss that was not a promise of a future, but a goodbye to the beautiful, fragile present they had just finally managed to build. And in that moment, in the quiet, sad, and beautiful intimacy of their shared embrace, Amy Fleming knew, with a certainty that was a cold, hard, and devastating finality, that she had already lost him all over again. The kiss was a beautiful, heartbreaking farewell, a final poignant acknowledgement of the perfect, peaceful world they had so briefly managed to build before the ghosts of the past had returned to tear it all down again. When they broke apart, Amy looked up at him, her own eyes a swirling, chaotic storm of a love, a fear, and a dawning, terrible resignation. She knew, with a certainty that was a cold, hard stone in her gut, that she could not stop him. The man in front of her was a man on a mission that was bigger and more powerful than even his love for her, but that did not mean she would not try. She took a step back, a small strategic retreat. Her own mind now a frantic, desperate search for the right words, for the one single argument that might be powerful enough to make him stay. She knew she could not appeal to his logic. She could not appeal to his fear. The only thing she had left, the one last and most powerful weapon in her arsenal, was his heart. Her voice, when she spoke, was no longer the fragile, pleading whisper from before. It was a low, steady, and deeply, deeply loving murmur, the voice of a woman painting a picture, a beautiful, tangible, and utterly irresistible vision of a future he was about to throw away.
We could go camping this summer, the three of us. We could take the horses, pack up the trailer, and just go up to the mountains. To that place by Mirror Lake, the one you always loved. We could teach Lindy how to build a proper campfire. We could fish in the lake. We could sleep out under the stars, just the three of us, 1,000,000 miles away from the rest of the world.
She was not just talking about a camping trip. She was talking about a life. A simple, beautiful, and profoundly normal life. The kind of life they had always dreamed of. Amy, and in the fall we could take her to the ocean. She's never seen the ocean, Ty. We could drive out to the coast, to Vancouver, to see your mom and Wade. We could walk on the beach. We could watch her dip her toes in the Pacific for the very first time. We could build sandcastles and eat ice cream on the pier and just be a family. A normal, boring, and completely, utterly happy family. Her words were a relentless, beautiful, and deeply, deeply cruel assault on his own, newly rehardened resolve. He could see it all. Every perfect, beautiful detail. He could see Lindy's face, alight with the joy of catching her first fish. He could see the look of pure, unadulterated wonder in her eyes as she saw the vast, endless expanse of the ocean for the first time. He could see Amy's smile, her real, genuine, and unburdened smile, as she watched them, her heart full of a simple, easy, and uncomplicated happiness. He could see the life he was being offered, the life that was waiting for him right here, just on the other side of this one, last, terrible fight. The vision of it, so perfect, so beautiful, so incredibly achingly close, was what finally completely and utterly broke him. A gut-wrenching animalistic sound, a sound of a profound and deeply, deeply human heartbreak was ripped from his soul. His own legs, which had been a pillar of a strong and unwavering resolve just a moment before, gave out from under him. He collapsed to the floor of their bedroom, his body a single, racked and sobbing heap, the sheer overwhelming and tragic weight of what he was about to give up, of what his own terrible past was about to cost him, a force too great for him to bear. He was not just a soldier, going off to fight a necessary war. He was a man, a husband, a father, and he was being forced to make an impossible and completely and utterly soul-shattering choice. Amy knelt on the floor beside him, her own heart shattering at the sight of his profound and utterly broken despair. She wrapped her arms around him, her own tears now falling freely, mingling with his. She was not a wife pleading with her husband anymore. She was a mother, comforting a deeply wounded and heartbroken child. She held him, her own body a shield against the terrible, impossible choice he was being forced to make. They stayed that way for a long time, two broken souls clinging to each other in the quiet, moonlit darkness of their bedroom, a tragic, beautiful portrait of a love that was being torn apart by the ghosts of a past that refused to stay dead. After a long, long time, the force of his sobs began to subside, replaced by a deep, weary, and bone-deep exhaustion. He pulled back, his face a mess of tears and a profound and deeply, deeply sorrowful resolve. He looked at her, at the woman who had just shown him a beautiful, tantalizing glimpse of a future he knew he could not have, not yet, and he knew what he had to do. He had to show her why. He had to make her understand. He got to his feet, his movements slow and deliberate, and he pulled her up with him.
Get dressed. Put on something warm. I need to take you somewhere.
His voice was a low, rough, and completely non-negotiable command. Amy, her own mind a blur of confusion and a dawning terrible dread, didn't argue. She just nodded, a silent, obedient participant in the final heartbreaking act of their own personal tragedy. He led her out of the sleeping house and into the cold, dark, and pre-dawn hours of the Alberta night. He didn't take the truck. He led her to the barn, and with a quiet, practiced efficiency, he saddled their two horses, Spartan and Harley. He helped her into the saddle, his hands a familiar, comforting presence, and then he mounted his own horse. And without a word, he led her away from the warm, safe lights of the ranch and into the vast, dark, and silent wilderness of the foothills. They rode for an hour in a profound and deeply, deeply intimate silence. The only sounds were the soft, rhythmic clip-clop of the horses' hooves on the familiar trail and the gentle whisper of the wind through the tall, dark pines. The moon was a brilliant silver disk in a sea of stars, illuminating the beautiful, rugged landscape in a soft, ethereal glow. He was leading her to a place she knew as well as her own heart, a place of a deep and profound personal history, the place where their own beautiful future had begun. He finally brought them to a halt in a small, secluded clearing on a high ridge, a place that offered a breathtaking, panoramic view of the entire Sleeping Valley. It was the same sacred spot where he had, a lifetime ago, gotten down on one knee and had asked her to be his wife. He dismounted and came to her side, his hands reaching up to help her down. He led her to the center of the clearing, and they stood there, two small, solitary figures in a vast, beautiful, and deeply, deeply significant landscape. He finally turned to her, and his voice, when he spoke, was a low, quiet, and deeply, deeply loving murmur.
Do you remember this place?
Of course. How could I ever forget?
Her own voice was a shattered whisper.
I brought you here tonight to remind you, not of the past, but of the promise of a future, the one I made to you, right here, on this spot.
He took her hands in his grip a warm, steady, and grounding presence.
The beautiful, peaceful life you were just talking about, Amy, the camping trips, the walks on the beach with Lindy, that is not just a dream, that is the future, that is our future, and it's the one thing, the only thing that I am fighting for.
He looked at her, his eyes shining with a fierce and deeply, deeply protective love.
But we will never have that future. Not for real, as long as he is out there. Nathan Price is not just a man who hurt me. He is a monster. He is a part of a powerful and deeply evil criminal organization, and they will not stop. They will never stop until they get what they want, and what they want is this.
He gestured with his head, a sweeping, all-encompassing movement that took in the vast, beautiful, and sleeping landscape of their home.
This is not just about revenge for me, Amy. This is not about my own personal pain. This is about protecting you. It's about protecting our daughter. It's about protecting this land, this home, this legacy that your family has built for 100 years. He is a cancer, and if I don't go out there, and if I don't cut him out for good, he will eventually, inevitably, destroy everything we love.
His words, so full of a grim, hard, and undeniable truth, were a final, devastating blow to her own last lingering hopes. She looked at him, at the unwavering and deeply, deeply honorable resolve on his face, and she finally completely and utterly understood. This was not a choice. This was his duty, his sacred and terrible duty, as a husband, as a father, and as a man. And in that moment, in the quiet, sacred, and deeply, deeply sad place where their future had once begun, she let him go. The ride back to the Heartland ranch from the moonlit clearing was a journey of profound and deeply, deeply sorrowful acceptance. They rode in a heavy, companionable silence, two partners who had just, in the sacred starlit space of their own history, made the most difficult and most necessary decision of their lives. The argument was over, the plea had been made, and the heartbreaking, undeniable truth of their new reality had been accepted. He had to go, and she had to let him. They returned to the quiet, sleeping house, two silent ghosts moving through the familiar, comfortable spaces. There were no more tears. There were no more desperate, last-ditch arguments. There was only a quiet, grim, and deeply, deeply loving resolve. They were a team again, a husband and a wife, but their shared purpose was no longer the simple, beautiful work of building a life together. It was the hard, dangerous, and necessary work of protecting it. The story shifts to the pre-dawn hours, the darkest, quietest time of the night. The house is still, the family asleep, unaware of the monumental, life-altering decision that has been made in their absence. But in the master bedroom, a single low light is burning, and a quiet, purposeful preparation is underway. This part of the story is a quiet, somber, and deeply intimate montage of a warrior preparing for battle. Amy is not a weeping, heartbroken victim in this scene. She is a partner. She is a soldier's wife. She is the steady, quiet, and unwavering support that is the bedrock of his own newfound strength. We see Ty, his face a mask of grim, focused determination, methodically packing a large, durable, and well-worn backpack. His movements are precise, efficient, and deeply, deeply practical. He is not a man who is running away. He is a man who is going to war. We see him lay out his essential belongings on the bed, a collection of objects that tell the story of a man who is prepared for a long, difficult, and dangerous journey. There is a small, high-tech satellite phone, a gift from a well-connected and now deeply worried Caleb. There is a thick, waterproof pouch containing a wad of cash, his own life savings, and a set of fake but believable identification documents, a final parting gift from a guilt-ridden and now disappeared supervisor from his past. And there are his weapons, not guns, not knives, but the tools of his own unique trade. A small leather-bound kit of veterinary supplies, syringes filled with powerful, fast-acting sedatives, a coil of thin, strong, and unbreakable rope. He is not a killer. He is a healer, and he is a horseman, and he will use his own unique skills to fight his own unique war. And Amy is there, a silent, supportive presence, anticipating his every need. She hands him a small, well-stocked first aid kit. She gives him a bag of high-energy, non-perishable food, the practical, loving act of a wife who is making sure her husband will not go hungry. Her own grief, her own terror at the thought of losing him again, is a quiet, steady, and unwavering strength. She is not the woman who is being left behind. She is the woman who is sending her warrior off to battle, her own love a silent, powerful, and unbreakable shield. The final, most significant moment of his preparation is a deeply symbolic one. He walks to the closet, and from a high, forgotten shelf, he takes down a familiar, beloved, and deeply significant object. It is the old black cowboy hat that Jack had given him so many years ago, the hat that had been a symbol of his transformation from a troubled, angry kid to a Heartland man. He holds it in his hands for a long moment. The worn, familiar felt a tangible, grounding connection to the man he had once been and the man he was now, once again being forced to become. He places it, with a slow, deliberate, and deeply, deeply significant motion on his head. He is ready. He turns to his wife, and in the quiet, intimate space of their own bedroom, they say their silent, heartbreaking goodbyes. He pulls her into a long, deep, and powerful embrace, a hug that is full of a universe of unspoken words, of a love so profound it is a physical, aching presence in the room. He kisses her, a long, slow, and deeply, deeply final kiss, and then he lets her go. He walks to the door, his heavy, loaded backpack slung over one shoulder, a solitary, determined, and deeply, deeply heroic figure. He is a man walking out of his own, hard-won paradise and back into the heart of a dark and dangerous wilderness. But he is not the same man who had stumbled out of that wilderness just a few short months ago. He is not a ghost. He is not a victim. He is Ty Borden, and he is going to hunt the monster who had tried to destroy his family. And this time, he will not fail. Ty walked out of the bedroom, a solitary, determined figure in the deep pre-dawn darkness of the house. He did not look back. He knew that if he did, if he saw Amy's beautiful, heartbroken face one more time, his own hard-won resolve might crumble. He moved silently through the sleeping house, a ghost on his own, final mission. He stopped for a moment at Lindy's doorway, a silent, loving sentinel, and watched his daughter sleep, her face a mask of pure angelic innocence. He burned the image of her into his memory, a powerful, sacred fuel for the long, dark, and dangerous journey that lay ahead. And then, he walked down the stairs and out the back door, a quiet, final click of the latch, the only sound in the sleeping house. The world outside was a different country. The air was cold, crisp, and achingly clear, the sky just beginning to turn from a deep, inky black to a pale, bruised purple in the east. He walked to the barn, his boots crunching on the damp, cold gravel of the yard. He moved with a quiet, efficient purpose, his mind a cold, clear, and focused machine. He saddled his beloved horse, Harley, his hands moving with a practiced, familiar ease. The simple, honest work was a welcome, grounding anchor in the stormy sea of his own emotions. He was ready. He led the horse out of the barn and stood in the middle of the vast, silent yard, a lone, dark silhouette against the dawning day. He was a cowboy, a husband, a father, a soldier, and he was waiting. He did not have to wait long. The first light of dawn was also the first light of a new and very difficult day for the Heartland family. The back door of the main house opened, and a figure emerged. It was Jack. He was carrying his usual steaming mug of coffee, his movements a part of the same timeless and deeply comforting morning ritual he had performed for 50 years. He stopped on the porch, his eyes immediately finding the strange, solitary figure of his grandson-in-law, standing beside a saddled horse in the pre-dawn gloom. He saw the heavy, loaded backpack. He saw the old black cowboy hat, and he saw the look of grim, unwavering, and heartbreaking resolve on Ty's face. And he knew. He didn't have to ask. He just knew. A profound and deeply, deeply weary sadness settled in the old man's heart. He had just gotten his family back, and now it was being torn apart all over again. One by one, the others began to emerge from the house, drawn by the same strange and deeply unsettling scene in the yard. Amy was the last one out. She stood on the porch, wrapped in a thick, warm blanket, her own face a mask of a quiet, sad, and deeply, deeply loving acceptance. She had made her peace with this. She had said her goodbyes. The entire Heartland family was now assembled, a small, silent, and heartbroken audience on the front porch, watching, waiting. The air was thick with unspoken words, with a profound and shared sense of a great and terrible loss. Ty finally, with a deep, steadying breath, broke the silence. His voice was not the emotional, pleading voice from the bedroom. It was the quiet, calm, and deeply authoritative voice of a man who has made a difficult but necessary decision. A man who is now, simply and sadly, giving his final orders.
I have an announcement to make.
The words, so formal, so strange, hung in the cold, clear morning air.
I'm leaving. I have to go and finish this. For all of us. I don't know how long I'll be gone, but I promise you, I will come back. And I will come back to a home that is safe, and to a family that is finally, and truly, and completely free.
The simple, powerful, and deeply, deeply loving declaration was his final, parting gift. He looked at each of them, at the faces of the people he loved more than life itself. He looked at Jack, at Lou, at Lisa. He looked at his daughter, who was now awake and watching from the window, her face a small, pale, and confused moon in the darkness. And finally, he looked at his wife, at Amy. He held her gaze for a long, profound, and timeless moment, a silent, powerful, and unbreakable promise passing between them. And then, with a single, fluid, and graceful motion, he swung himself up into the saddle. He took one last, long, and heartbreaking look at his home, at his family, and then he turned his horse's head towards the rising sun, and without a backward glance, he rode away, a lone, heroic, and deeply, deeply solitary figure, disappearing into the vast, beautiful, and unforgiving landscape of the Alberta foothills.